When a struggling mechanic stops to help a stranded single mom, he has no idea she owns the company about to change his life forever. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The rain pounded relentlessly on the busy highway as Elena Rodriguez stood helplessly beside her broken-down sedan. At 38, she carried herself with professional poise despite the current circumstances. Her tailored blazer now slightly damp and her patience wearing thin. Cars zipped by, occasionally splashing water onto the shoulder where she tried to shelter herself with a small umbrella that provided minimal protection against the elements. Elena pressed her phone tightly against her ear, her frustration evident in her furrowed brow. "No, I understand there's high call volume," she said, her voice strained yet controlled. "But I've been waiting for over an hour now." The voice on the other end offered another apology, another request to hold. "Yes, I'll hold. Again." She sighed, glancing at her watch as lightning flashed across the darkening sky. She thought about her daughter Mia, who would be finishing basketball practice soon, waiting for a mother who wouldn't arrive on time. Elena had promised not to miss another pickup, yet here she was, stranded and powerless. The roadside assistance company had quoted a 2-hour wait time minimum, unacceptable for a single mother with responsibilities and a company to run, even if most of her employees didn't know she was the owner. As she paced beside her car, a mud-splattered pickup truck slowed down and pulled over about 20 yards ahead. Elena tensed slightly. A woman alone on a deserted stretch of highway had reason to be cautious. The truck's door opened, and a man in his early 40s stepped out, wearing worn jeans and a faded work shirt with a patch reading, "Mike's Auto Repair." Mike Delgado approached cautiously, keeping a respectful distance as he called out over the rain. "Having car trouble, ma'am?" His voice was warm and genuine, with no hint of impatience despite the downpour soaking through his baseball cap. Elena nodded, still clutching her phone where the roadside assistance company had her on eternal hold. "Yes, but I've got help coming." "Eventually," she replied, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm a mechanic," Mike said, gesturing to his shirt. "Mind if I take a look? No charge. Just hate seeing folks stranded in this weather." There was something trustworthy about his open expression and the gentle way he spoke, as if helping strangers was simply what one did, rain or shine. Elena hesitated only briefly before nodding. "That would be very kind. Thank you." She ended her call, deciding that actual help standing in front of her trumped the promise of help that might never arrive. Mike moved to the front of the car, popping the hood with practiced ease. Rain dripped from the brim of his cap as he leaned in, examining the engine with a small flashlight he produced from his pocket. "How long has the check engine light been on?" he asked, glancing up at her. Elena felt a flash of embarrassment. "A couple of weeks? I've been meaning to get it checked, but between work and my daughter's schedule?" She trailed off, not wanting to sound like she was making excuses. Mike nodded understandingly. There was no judgment in his eyes, just focus on the problem at hand. "Looks like your timing belt's shot, and that's caused some other issues. Not something I can fix here on the side of the road." He wiped his hands on a rag and looked at her with genuine concern. "I can give you a tow to my shop if you'd like. It's about 10 minutes from here." Elena checked the time again, thinking of Mia. "I need to pick up my daughter from basketball practice soon. Is there any way?" "Tell you what," Mike said, already moving toward his truck. "I'll tow your car to my shop, then give you a ride to pick up your daughter. I can have the car fixed by tomorrow afternoon." Relief washed over Elena's face. "Are you sure? That's going above and beyond." Mike shrugged, rain dripping from his shoulders. "It's no trouble. That's just what neighbors do for each other, right?" The next day, Elena arrived at Mike's Auto Repair. A modest establishment with 3 service bays and a small waiting area that smelled of coffee and motor oil. 2 mechanics worked on vehicles while Mike himself greeted customers and managed the operation. It wasn't fancy, but there was an atmosphere of honest work and fair dealing that Elena immediately appreciated. Mike wiped his hands on a shop towel as he approached her with a smile. "Ms. Rodriguez, good to see you again. Your car's all set. Timing, belt replaced, and I also fixed that oil leak that was starting to develop." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Oil leak? I didn't know about that." Most people wouldn't until it became a major problem, Mike explained, walking her to her newly repaired sedan. "I noticed it while working on the timing belt. Just a small gasket, but it could have caused engine damage down the road." As Mike went over the invoice with her, explaining each repair in layman's terms, Elena studied him carefully. His shop was clean, his prices fair, and his manner genuine. Most importantly, he'd gone out of his way to help her when she was stranded, not knowing who she was or expecting anything in return. "Mike," Elena said as she handed him her credit card, "I'm actually the CEO of Phoenix Automotive Group." She watched his expression change from polite interest to surprise. "We're opening a new service center across town, and I've been looking for a service manager who understands both cars and customer care." Mike blinked, processing this unexpected information. "You own Phoenix? That's one of the largest auto service chains in the state." Elena nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "A chain that began as a single shop, not unlike yours. My father started it 30 years ago, and I took over after business school." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The thing is, we've grown so much that sometimes we lose sight of what matters most, treating customers like human beings, not just walking wallets." Mike shifted uncomfortably, seemingly unsure how to respond to the revelation that the stranded motorist he'd helped was actually a major player in his industry. "I don't normally do this," Elena continued, "but I'd like to offer you a position, managing our new facility. The salary is competitive, and you'd have full autonomy over hiring your team." A week later, Mike sat in his cramped office at the back of his shop, surrounded by invoices and parts catalogs. Elena's offer weighed heavily on his mind. The salary she'd proposed was nearly double what he made running his own place, and the benefits package included health insurance, something he'd been unable to afford for his employees. His shop phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. "Mike's Auto Repair," he answered automatically. "Mike, it's Elena Rodriguez. Just checking if you've had a chance to consider my offer?" Mike looked around at his small kingdom, the calendar with customer birthdays marked in red pen, the wall of thank you cards from grateful clients, the photo of him and his late father on the day they'd opened the shop 15 years ago. "I have," Mike replied, his voice thoughtful. "It's very generous, but I'm struggling with the idea of leaving this place. My dad and I built it from nothing." Elena was quiet for a moment before responding. "I understand family legacy, Mike. It's why I'm still running Phoenix instead of selling to one of the national chains who make offers every other month." She paused. "What if there was another option? What if you kept your shop but also oversaw our new service center as a consultant? You could train our managers in your approach to customer service, and we could modernize some of your systems in return." Mike straightened in his chair, intrigued. "A partnership?" "Exactly. Phoenix gets your expertise and reputation for honest work, and you get our resources without giving up your independence." 6 months later, Elena stood beside Mike at the grand opening of Phoenix Automotive's newest service center. A banner stretched across the entrance. "Quality service with a personal touch, the Mike Delgado way." The facility gleamed with state-of-the-art equipment, but what really set it apart was the staff, all trained personally by Mike in his philosophy of treating customers like neighbors, not numbers. "I still can't believe all this happened because my timing belt broke," Elena said, watching as customers explored the new facility during the open house. Mike chuckled. Maybe it wasn't just the timing belt that was perfect timing. He gestured toward where his daughter Lily was chatting animatedly with Elena's daughter Mia. The girls had become fast friends during the months their parents had worked together, bonding over basketball and a shared love of automotive engineering. That had surprised both Mike and Elena. Elena smiled warmly. When my car broke down that night, I was convinced it was the worst possible timing. An important meeting the next morning, Mia's practice ending, the rain. Now I think it might have been the universe nudging us in the right direction. Speaking of directions, Mike said, have you given any more thought to my proposal about the apprenticeship program? Teaching high school kids basic auto repair could create a pipeline of qualified technicians and help kids who might not be college-bound find good careers. Elena nodded enthusiastically. The board approved it yesterday. We're going to pilot it at 3 locations, including yours. She watched as Mike's face lit up with excitement. Your dad would be proud, you know. You've taken what he built and expanded it in ways he probably never imagined. And your father? Mike asked. What would he think of this partnership? Elena's eyes grew misty as she looked around at the bustling service center. He always said that success wasn't measured in dollars, but in the difference you make. By that standard, I think we're both doing pretty well. As they walked through the facility together, greeting customers and employees alike, both knew that what had begun as a simple act of kindness on a rainy night had transformed into something neither could have anticipated. A partnership based on shared values, mutual respect, and the understanding that sometimes the best business decisions come from the heart. 1 year after Mike and Elena formalized their unexpected partnership, what began as a chance encounter on a rainy highway has evolved into a business relationship that has transformed not only their individual careers, but also begun to reshape the automotive service industry in their region. This conclusion serves to wrap up the narrative threads while also opening new possibilities that extend beyond the end of our story, suggesting that the ripple effects of that initial act of kindness continue to spread outward in ever-widening circles. The annual leadership conference where we find Mike and Elena in Part 6 represents a significant milestone. Held in a gleaming downtown convention center, a far cry from Mike's modest 3-bay garage where they first shook hands on their partnership, this gathering brings together franchise owners, service managers, and corporate executives from across the company's expanding network. The setting itself illustrates the journey they've made together. Mike's small-town values and hands-on approach to customer service now taking center stage in a corporate environment that might once have seemed entirely foreign to him. The polished presentation slides and professionally printed programs bear both their names with equal prominence, symbolizing how completely their initially imbalanced power dynamic has evolved into true partnership. Elena's company, Phoenix Automotive Group, has undergone remarkable expansion in the 12 months since she offered Mike that initial position. What had been a regional chain with a solid reputation but unremarkable growth trajectory has now blossomed into a rapidly expanding operation with 15 locations spread across 3 neighboring states. Industry analysts have taken notice, with trade publications featuring profiles of what they've dubbed the Phoenix phenomenon, a service-first approach that has resulted in customer retention rates and satisfaction scores that outpace industry averages by substantial margins. While Elena had always emphasized quality service in her company's operations, the incorporation of the Mike Delgado Way has transformed what was once a corporate platitude into a genuine competitive advantage with measurable results. For Mike, the transition from small business owner to corporate partner has brought challenges as well as rewards. In the early months, he struggled with dividing his time between his original shop, which he insisted on keeping open as a promise to his father's legacy, and the consulting work with Phoenix. There were moments of doubt when corporate committees moved too slowly for his taste, or when standardizing his approach across multiple locations seemed to dilute some of the personal touch that made his method special. Elena witnessed his frustration during those early days, recognizing in it the same resistance she once felt when corporate acquisitions threatened to change her father's original vision for Phoenix Automotive. What ultimately made their partnership work wasn't just their complementary skills. Elena's business acumen paired with Mike's technical expertise and customer service philosophy, but their shared understanding of what it means to honor a family legacy while also allowing it to evolve. On particularly difficult days, they'd sometimes meet at Mike's original shop after hours, sitting in the cramped office with coffee and chipped mugs, working through challenges away from the corporate environment. These informal strategy sessions, often extending late into the evening with takeout containers littering the desk between them, generated some of their most innovative ideas. The apprenticeship program that Mike had proposed became the cornerstone of their partnership's success. Initially piloted at 3 locations including Mike's original shop, the program identified promising students from local high schools, particularly those who might not be college-bound, and offered them paid internships that combined practical experience with classroom instruction. Mike personally developed the curriculum, drawing on his 3 decades of experience to create a program that taught not just technical skills, but also customer communication, problem-solving, and ethical business practices. By the time of the AI Leadership Conference in Part 6, the apprenticeship program had graduated its first cohort of 37 students, 32 of whom accepted full-time positions within the Phoenix network. In an industry facing critical shortages of qualified technicians, this pipeline of well-trained, enthusiastic young people gave Phoenix a significant advantage over competitors still relying solely on traditional hiring channels. More importantly, to Mike, the program provided meaningful career opportunities to kids like he had once been, mechanically inclined but not academically oriented, looking for a path that valued their particular talents. Elena's corporate board, initially skeptical about investing in what one member dismissively called vocational charity, had become the program's most vocal champions after seeing the results. Not only did the apprenticeship program solve their persistent staffing challenges, but it also generated substantial goodwill in the communities where Phoenix operated. Local news coverage of graduation ceremonies, featuring students in crisp uniforms presenting their final projects to beaming parents, provided the kind of authentic community engagement that marketing dollars simply couldn't buy. This community connection extended beyond the apprenticeship program to become a defining characteristic of Phoenix's expanded business model. Under Mike and Elena's joint leadership, each location established a community care fund that set aside a percentage of monthly profits for vehicle repairs for families in financial hardship. Service managers were empowered to waive labor costs for elderly customers on fixed incomes or to arrange payment plans for single parents facing unexpected car troubles, a policy directly inspired by Elena's experience that rainy night when her car broke down. The financial impact of these initiatives surprised even Elena, who had always considered herself a socially conscious business leader. Customer loyalty soared, with referrals accounting for nearly 40% of new business across all locations. Employee turnover, a persistent problem in automotive service, dropped to less than half the industry average as technicians and service advisors reported greater job satisfaction when allowed to occasionally do the right thing without worrying about hourly billables. The Phoenix brand became synonymous with integrity in markets where they operated, allowing them to command slightly premium pricing while maintaining steady growth. At the Leadership Conference, where we find them in Part 6, Mike and Elena are preparing to share these results with the company's extended management team. Their presentation, titled Community-Centered Business Models in the Automotive Industry, represents both a vindication of their approach and a roadmap for the company's future growth. As they wait to be introduced, Elena notices how differently Mike carries himself compared to their first meeting, still humble and authentically himself, but now comfortable in settings that would have once seemed intimidating. The grease-stained work clothes have been replaced by a crisp button-down and khakis for the occasion, but the warm smile and direct gaze remain unchanged. For her part, Elena has also been transformed by their partnership. The harried executive, who once missed too many of her daughter's basketball games, has restructured her work patterns, delegating more responsibility to her leadership team and blocking sacred time for family commitments. Mike's example of building a successful business, without sacrificing personal connections, helped her recalibrate her own priorities. She's become more present not just for her daughter Mia, but also more engaged with the day-to-day operations of her business, regularly visiting service centers and knowing many employees by name, something she had gradually lost touch with. As Phoenix expanded, the unexpected friendship between their children, Mike's daughter Lily and Elena's daughter Mia, has evolved into something that both parents view as one of the greatest blessings of their partnership. What began as occasional encounters when Mike would bring Lily to planning meetings has blossomed into a sisterly bond between the teenagers. Mia, once drifting through high school without clear direction, found inspiration in Lily's passion for automotive engineering. Together, the girls established a Women in Automotive Club at their high school, organizing field trips to local community colleges with technical programs and arranging for female technicians from Phoenix locations to speak about career opportunities in the industry. Watching their daughters find purpose through this connection has deepened Mike and Elena's commitment to their shared vision. As they take the stage together at the conference, the contrast between them is still visible. Elena in her tailored suit and Mike with his calloused hands that no amount of scrubbing ever quite gets completely clean. But there's an undeniable synergy in how they present their ideas. Mike speaks with the authentic passion of someone who has lived the principles he's sharing, while Elena translates those principles into the language of metrics and growth strategies that resonates with the business-minded audience. Together, they represent a bridge between two worlds that rarely find common ground: the personal, relationship-driven approach of small business and the scalable, systems-oriented approach of corporate enterprise. Their presentation concludes with the announcement of Phoenix's most ambitious initiative yet, a foundation dedicated to establishing similar apprenticeship programs in underserved communities across the country, with a goal of training 1,000 new automotive technicians over the next 5 years. The foundation, jointly funded by Phoenix corporate profits and industry partners who have taken notice of their success, will provide both the curriculum Mike developed and seed funding for equipment and facilities. Mike will serve as the foundation's director, stepping back somewhat from day-to-day operations to focus on this larger mission of industry transformation. As they field questions from the audience, it becomes clear that their influence extends beyond just Phoenix Automotive. Representatives from competing service chains ask thoughtful questions about implementation, while automotive manufacturers express interest in partnership opportunities. The industry, traditionally slow to change and often resistant to initiatives, perceived as soft or difficult to quantify, is beginning to recognize the competitive advantage of their human-centered approach. When the formal presentation concludes and attendees filter out toward the networking reception, Mike and Elena linger momentarily on the empty stage. "Did you ever imagine that night in the rain that we'd end up here?" Elena asks, gesturing to the conference hall where hundreds of automotive professionals have just applauded their vision. Mike shakes his head, a humble smile crossing his features. "I was just trying to help someone who needed a hand," he admits. "All I saw was a car with its hazards on and someone having a rough day. And I just saw a blue-collar mechanic who might solve my immediate problem," Elena responds with a laugh. "I had no idea you'd end up solving problems I didn't even know I had." Their conversation is interrupted by Mike's phone buzzing with a text message. "It's Lily," he says, checking the screen. She and Mia finished their application for the engineering scholarship. The pride in his voice is evident. His daughter, who once struggled to envision a future beyond their small town, now applying to university programs with Elena's daughter, as her closest ally. As they walked together toward the reception, past the enlarged photos of Phoenix service centers with their distinctive new branding that incorporates elements of Mike's original shop logo, both reflect silently on the serendipity that brought them together. One broken timing belt, one rainy night, one simple act of roadside kindness. From these unremarkable beginnings has grown a partnership that continues to yield rewards neither could have anticipated. The future stretches before them filled with possibility. More locations, more apprentices, more lives changed through opportunity and connection. But perhaps most valuable is the lesson their story offers to everyone it touches. That integrity and kindness are not just moral choices, but powerful business strategies. That expertise can flow both ways between corporate boardrooms and neighborhood garages, and that sometimes the most important connections we make begin in moments of vulnerability rather than strength.